Hey everybody, it's Annette from The Art of Intuition, and today we are going to talk about a subject we've talked about many times before, but I wanted to go a little more in depth into it. Will our dreams materialize? And when everyone knows when I talk about dreams, I mean the dreams you have when we're sleeping. Will they materialize? Are they actually going to happen? We talk a lot about anchoring them in, right? Which ones are going to anchor in, which ones are not going to anchor in. And we talk a lot about not getting attached to them because you never know which ones are going to anchor in. So we're going to explore that a little bit today and get into which ones are more likely to anchor in than the other ones when you start really going into the dream world and seeing so many possibilities. I know I have had some that anchored in and some that to this date and hour have not anchored in, and it's been a couple years. And normally my template, and I think this is pretty standard from what I've heard from a lot of people, that usually it takes 2.5 years to anchor in something like that. Anchor in rewrite your template, anchor in a new reality. You'll be working on it energetically for a while. You'll see pieces and parts of it coming in, but the whole thing might take 2.5 years to actually solidify. For example, I used to dream about a person I had not met. And I dreamed about this person for years. And I mean like hundreds of dreams about this person. And pretty much showing the whole relationship I was going to have with this person. But I had not really met the person. And when I finally met the person, from the time I started having the dreams, from the time I met the person, it was probably about 2.5 years. So that did actually materialize in. Now, I was working very diligently to materialize that in. One was because I really wanted to meet and talk and have a relationship with a person, because the relationship in the dream world that I was being shown was a very interesting one that I wanted to explore. Now, one of the tricks to feel into, almost to think about, we don't want to think about any of this stuff. We got to feel into all of it. If we're thinking about it, we're in the wrong part of the body. We don't want to think about it. We want to feel into, why do we want that thing to happen? And if I go back and look at the one that I was working so hard towards, there was a lot of ego around it. So a lot of the stuff we're going to see can still be wanting to be materialized by the ego and not by our higher aspects, right? So keep that in mind when you're looking at different scenarios and go, okay, why do I want that one? And that was a kind of a big important one for me when I was like, why do I want that one? Like, why does that one feel like I want that one so much? But it was more ego-based than higher consciousness-based. Now, that's going to be true in part and not true in part, because technically everything is higher consciousness-based. I will say, and this is held true for me, so I can speak to my experience, if it is something that was going to enhance my consciousness, it was going to happen. There was no way I was going to get around it. There was no way I was going to dodge it. There was no way I was going to miss my mark. There was no way that thing was not going to materialize in. I don't care if it was 2.5 years or 4 years. If it was going to really push me to the brink and enhance consciousness, it was going to happen. Now, the one that I saw for, a long, long time before it materialized in was a twin flame experience. Now, I don't do too much about twin flames. There are a lot of channels that talk all about twin flames, and there's a lot of third dimensional consciousness and fourth dimensional consciousness that kind of gets into twin flames. So I do want to touch on it a little bit here because it's a pivotal part. At some moment, you're going to go through this experience. I don't know if anyone's gonna not go through the twin experience. I think you kind of really have to have it. And normally when we have it, and I mean have one consciously in a sense where that's what you're doing, because we've had them all our life unconsciously. We just didn't know that's what we were doing. So if we talk about twins, we talk about, from a third dimensional consciousness, people don't believe in that, right? If you have a third dimensional consciousness and you're operating from your human, your ego, a lot of times you don't really believe there are these energetic matches or blah, blah, blah. So to me, twins kind of get into fourth dimensional consciousness, where you're kind of like, what is going on here? Why do I feel so drawn to this person? Why do I want to get to know this person? Why do I always feel so connected to this person? What's going on? And that's when you kind of start exploring those types of topics, and that'll lead you to a lot of twin flame talks and discussions, and you get into a lot of the twin flame matrix, and we talk a lot about our matrices. We talk a lot about our human matrices and our what we've constructed is real. And twin flames have a whole matrix all of their own. They have a whole karma all of their own. So when you're listening to a lot of the material on twin flames, most of it is people who are still believing in the matrix. They believe in the runner and the chaser and the whole storyline about you only have one, which is not true. We have everyone technically you meet is your twin in one way or the other. Now, normally when I talk about it on this channel, we talk about the romantic ones because those are the ones that you're going to remember the most. You know, normally if we have, even if we don't have a sexual relationship with people, if it's just in a very energetic, strong connection, the ones we feel more romantic about are normally the ones that we kind of remember a little bit more. We ping them a little bit more in a sense. We kind of put them kind of up here. And that's kind of the whole point about twins, right? We put them kind of on a pedestal. We let them get away with stuff. I know I let my latest one get away with everything. He couldn't do anything wrong as far as I was concerned, in a sense. Not really to go right and wrong, but you know, you get the point. They couldn't do anything wrong. Whatever they did was okay. And that's part of the twin flame matrix, in a sense. That's what it's trying to show you. So once you kind of get into 5D, 6D, 7D, 8D, 9D consciousness, you start to see it for what it is. And they're going to, now they do share an energetic signature with you, a close energetic signature. They're going to bring up your obsession. They're going to bring up your anger. They're going to bring up a lot of distorted stuff. And that's their purpose. So when I remember dreaming about this person years before I met them, there was no way this person wasn't going to come in because it was so pivotal to my consciousness. Even though from an ego point of view, I can see where I kind of wanted it from that point of view too. I had no pure agenda on it. I just wanted that reality, even though there was a lot of things in that reality I knew were never going to align. But I still wanted it to happen. I still worked toward it. Now, when I say I worked toward it, we talk a lot about working toward it. I knew certain things I had to do to be ready for that when it came in. I did not know at the time that it was going to be a completely twin relationship, which means completely distorted, completely a mess. And it shows you the most beautiful parts of yourself, and it shows you the parts of yourself that you really want to purge through. Because twins are going to show us where we compromise. They're going to show us where we'll give in. They're going to show us where we give our power away. They're going to show us where we make someone more special than somebody else. Forget about all the other stuff you're going to see. You know, about there only being one. I mean, if you look back on all your relationships, once you get to a certain point in consciousness, you'll understand that everyone you were ever with was a twin. But once you clear that distortion, you clear the energy signature that person held, and they're no longer a twin anymore. Then you go on to the next one. And even though the energy can be similar, it's a little different signature, one that you haven't cleared yet, one you're now going to go deeper in. Sometimes it can be the same person again and again. Mine's never were the same person. They all look very similar, though, and I've said that on this channel too. You know, you have a type where they all look the same. It makes it easier to pick them all out. You don't have to wonder, you know right away, you know, like, oh, that one's mine. You can pick them out 100 miles away because you even have them all look the same. But when we're unconscious, we don't realize we're going through that. So when I talk about twins in this discussion, we're kind of talking about when you get to the consciousness to recognize that that's what they are. And you kind of go through a conscious twin relationship. And you'll go unconscious during certain parts of it. I know I did. Maybe if it was for 3 hours or 3 days, but you will be. And the one thing twins will show you, I think, with a microscope, they will rarely amplify how much of our time we spend wrapped up in someone else's life. And you can take that and equate that to anyone where we do that to, whether it's our children's lives, our anyone we're in a relationship with, our friends' lives, people we see on TV, you know, popular people, or I guess we're going to say famous people you see, where you're so wrapped up in their life, you don't spend any time on yours. And that is something that is kind of, you see a lot now. You know, and I know with twins, especially my last twin, it was very easy to see that. You know, after all, it was very easy to see that I'm so wrapped up in what they're doing. I'm not doing anything. You know, I'm not trying to worry about what I'm doing. I'm wrapped up in everyone else's life. So that's when we kind of go back to everyone technically is a twin. You know, everyone technically is going to be, because they're going to show us that. But twins, the romantic twins tend to amplify it for you. So I kind of got on a twin topic, and I didn't really want to do that, but I think it's important because when we start looking at our dream world, not everything's going to anchor. And that's kind of been a tougher part in a sense for me, because there's some I've seen and I really am like, oh, I really want that to anchor. And then as my consciousness has expanded, as my vibration has gone up, I put a lot of plants in the house the other day. So I highly recommend that for enhancing the vibration of your space. And also, it also improves the oxygen flow and works on a lot of different levels. Plants will. And you are kind of, saving a life. I actually like to film in this room now because I have all the plants in here, and it's a much higher vibration for me to work in. So when we start talking about what's going to anchor and what's not, there's some that I can look at now and say, why do I really want that? Do I want that from an ego place, or do I want that from the highest aspects of me? And let me really look at why I want to anchor that in, because that is going to make a difference. Now, the caveat once again is, if it's going to springboard your consciousness, it's going to happen. You might delay it for a while if you're not working toward it. And when I say that, there are some realities I've seen that I'm like, oh, I want to do that. What do I got to do to do that? And we've used the example tons of times. If you're trying to publish a book, you might feel the need to start doing certain things, moving to a certain area. Maybe you'll feel the need to start writing the book. Maybe you won't yet. Maybe that'll come later. Maybe you'll just meet the people that'll be in that reality a couple years down the road. You'll meet a publisher. You'll meet someone who might illustrate the book for you. But you like, all the pieces kind of are coming together, but they're not solidified together yet. You can just kind of see them on the horizon. Like for me, I know eventually I want to move to a different state. And I've already kind of made a couple contacts in that state. So they're kind of there, but they're not in a place for me to move into that reality yet. It's just kind of there. So it kind of starts to come in pieces. So some you're going to understand that you're going to go toward that. And some you're going to see you want it from a different place. And those are the ones you've really got to look at. And we can't really get attached to any of them, because at the end of the day, when I look at it right now, I want the highest timeline. I don't want anything I'm going to attract from an ego standpoint. I'd rather not have any more twin flame relationships. I don't feel like I will anymore. We get to a certain place where we've kind of gone through it and we don't need the experience anymore. And we kind of move beyond twins because they've helped us clear everything that we had needed to clear. Because a lot of stuff we can't get to on our own. And that's when we call in these certain realities. And when I say that's when some things are going to happen no matter what, because you need that experience to clear. You don't know the magnitude of how you feel about something. You don't know the magnitude of what you'll do, how much you'll compromise. You don't know the magnitude of obsession energy it's going to bring up. You don't know the magnitude of how much you're going to get obsessed about somebody else's life and not your own. You don't know the magnitude you're going to do that until you have the experience. Because we don't realize how much we have. I know some people who have so in a much different place in their consciousness journey, and they had to go through it because they needed to get to that really deep stuff. And twins are kind of like a Roto-Rooter, and they will get through all that stuff. So when we're looking at our dream world and we're going through all these realities, like I said, I've had some of other people I'm supposed to meet, and I've seen that for a couple years now. So I'm kind of open to it happening, but I'm not as attached to it as it was when this first started happening like 7 or 8 years ago, because you can get really kind of so wrapped up in it. Also, I can look back and see what I started doing was filling in the blanks, and our human will do that. It'll see stuff in the dream world, and I might see a relationship where I have to play a certain role, and that's the role I'm playing. And when it starts to materialize here, that's the role I'm playing. I'm kind of in the world, but outside the world in a sense. I'm in the reality, but have to be separate from everyone else in the reality. Have to act from a different place. Have to come from a different place. I have to come from a higher space. I can't kind of play in the human stuff. But when it starts materializing here, you want it to go, there's a part of you that wants to do, it's part of it is that twin matrix. You want it to go that Cinderella story. You want it to go a certain cadence. You want it to be happily ever after, even though you look at it, you're like, there's no way in hell this is going to be a happily ever after. Not in anything we've created right now. One, I'm not creating it from the purest place, but that was kind of the point for me to see that. But it gets all wrapped up and distorted, and I can look back and see that I'm like, wow, this is some heavy shit. I mean, I can't believe I created this. It's like I've created a monster here. But a lot of that is kind of how twins work and how they kind of come in and out. And no, I did a video a while back on, you kind of know the people that are going to have what will feel, though there's no one that's insignificant. I got that from 5 on the Umbrella Academy. There's no one that's insignificant. Everyone plays a role. So I don't want this to come off like everyone doesn't play a role, because they do. And there's no one's more special than anyone else. But there will be certain people, when you look back on your journey, that you felt like they played a bigger role. They really helped push you forward. And usually those people you saw coming a long time, and maybe they were around your circles, but not in your life, but they were kind of hovering around. And we talked about, that's kind of the cosmic dance we play. The longer it took for people to come in to me, the more of an impact they were going to have. If they were kind of on the outskirts of my life for years, when they finally did come in, then it was like, okay, this person is going to be impactful. And a lot of times we're doing that cosmic dance to see if the realities can line up, and you kind of see each other, and energetically you're exchanging all that information, even if you might never speak to one another. The talking doesn't matter. You're in the same space. And I was in the same space with a person like I was going to meet tons of times, but we never met yet. And we also can't push that. I also was conscious enough to know that I can't push this. This has got to unfold on its own. I can't push any of this stuff. So you kind of start to see a lot of that stuff and see how, there is a cosmic dance going on. There's a lot of things going on here that have to line up. And this reality can't happen until these things line up. So if you know you're supposed to meet a person, or there's people that are kind of hanging around your field, I kind of call it kind of hanging around your field. And I guess in a way you're hanging around theirs, but they haven't quite come in yet. Normally for me, that means they're going to be more impactful than people you kind of meet, and you kind of meet them real quick, and you might talk to them once and you might never see them again. You kind of just sort of know. So this kind of went in a lot of different ways, but I think that's kind of a good a good sort of way to put it. So a couple things to just kind of wrap up. Really look at where you're kind of really so wrapped up in someone else's life that you're not really pursuing your own. And that, I heard someone say that, and I was like, yeah, I think that's a good way to look at a lot of stuff. And to me, twins bring that up the most. Children will also bring that up quite a bit. But when you're dealing with the twins, there's so much stuff out there. Remember, they're just for you to clear programming. They just can kind of get deeper in programming, but all the other stuff is just the human story we make up around it to make it sound a lot sexier and a lot better than it is, because 9 times out of 10 these relationships are very challenging. Especially if you're they're challenging if you're not going through them consciously. You just don't realize you're kind of in the middle of the shit show when you're in it. And when you're trying to go through them consciously, you might find yourself dipping in and out, kind of getting sucked into the matrix, and then kind of having to pull out. And eventually you'll work through that, where you don't get sucked in, or you don't get sucked in for 2 months anymore. You might get sucked in for 2 hours, and you're like, whoa, what the fuck? I did it again. I got sucked in. But that's the point, to show you that. So look at what you're looking at in your dream world. Look at why you want certain things to happen. And that's going to tell you a lot about, if you're at a certain place in your consciousness and you see certain things and you want them from an ego place, those are the ones right now, I feel, for me, they're probably not going to come in, because I'm not materializing from that place anymore. And I can recognize that's what I'm doing. As soon as we can see what we're doing, it's kind of like with twins or the mirror, As soon as we realize they're twins and realize they're a mirror, and we step away from the mirror, they're technically not twins, and technically they're not a mirror of us anymore. So, okay. Keep practicing the art of intuition.